Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello, people of the world. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Everyone's a special guest. I'm joined by Chris Barrows. Now, I had the good fortune of meeting him in the creative space. I was a guest on his podcast, Why Social. And we've also had a lot of synergy. I know, Chris, I don't know if you know this, but I know your wife from Eastern Ace. The world is very small. I know Chris, one of your past guest on your podcast. So the world is just so much synergy here. And I was like, you know what? I love what you're doing. I had to have you as a guest on a podcast, but more so in a different route about your career and the things that you're doing creatively as you let me be on your podcast. So before we get into this discussion, Chris, give the listeners a little bit about who you are and elevator pitchy.
Yeah. So it's funny. I come from a background about 15 years of digital marketing experience, but more recently in the past year or so, I had my own kind of epiphany of just what I wanted to do. And it's going to be a journey, and I'm only at the start of that journey. But one of those things was I love board games. I've had a YouTube channel for 5 years, which is honestly more about the community than the actual channel itself. The channel does in line with the community more than anything. But from a business perspective, I and one of my partners on the YouTube channel both had the same vision of we wanted to bring board games to more places, to more people. So we started Traveling Boards, and Traveling Boards is focused on bringing the board games to you. So coming to your corporate office, coming to a local cafe. It's the idea of bringing board games to people and places where maybe they aren't right now, and the value that board games and play as a whole offers. So that's really kind of what it's been about. I mean, I'm very candid right now in my life. Most of my money is still coming in from my marketing background, and I, in the long run, hope that the business goes to the direction where I want. As I note that I'm going to be doing chess classes this fall and all these other different things. So, that journey is really just beginning, but I'm excited by it. And when it comes down to it, yeah, board games are they're part of my daily life. I know people can't see it, but behind me is just a wall of board games and a table full of board games. And so, yeah, they're everywhere around me at pretty much all times.
I love that, and I love games, and I think, we could do a poll. Like, I think that is ingrained in American culture, but also childhood is board games. And no one could deny it. Everyone's played a board game at some point. Take us a little bit back to your origin story. Like, you got this immense collection. How do you start, going from just a board game amateur such as myself to playing it a lot more often and things like that?
So it's interesting. I always liked board games. I grew up with a game that honestly, it's like pulling teeth to get me to play it now, but I respect what it did, which is Monopoly. And I know a lot of people have played Monopoly. I don't enjoy Monopoly personally anymore, but I played it with my grandfather a lot. So years went by since then. My grandfather's still here. I have not played Monopoly since probably a game with him more than a decade ago, candidly. But appreciation of gaming was there. What happened was I had a chance I've played party games throughout college and all these things, but I always had this itch in the back of my mind of like, man, I'm missing something. I remember I played a game. It's designed by Jamie Stegmaier of Stonemaier Games called Scythe, which was a area control type of game, but you got points not as much from battle, even though there were these giant mech units that you controlled. And I was so intrigued. I was like, wait a minute, like it kind of shifted your thought process. Like, there's all these mechs that are moving around, but you're only really valued it using them twice in the game to fight, because after that, there's no real meaning to them other than they control a spot. So it made me think about just a lot of different things in the way that we can shift perception on things, that we can design something to appear one way, but serve a different purpose. And so that game drew me into a heavier set of gaming, which started a downfall of dominoes, so to speak, that turned into a very large collection. Now, mind you, there are so many games out there, I can't keep up with them on a day-to-day basis.
Hmm.
If I have people come to say, I can't keep up, I know because I can't keep up. It's nothing surprising me, but I stay on the up and up with what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the news, whether there's challenges with games even getting published, whether someone's going out of business, whether there's a bunch of new games coming from someone. I'm on the top of it. But the origin began because, for me, of kind of the more modern gaming industry, probably about 10 or 12 years ago
Hmm.
as a whole, which brought me back into it, which was a world I knew and loved. And it's been easy to kind of stay in it. The hard part is not having my wallet be as impacted by it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but thankfully, I can tell you, when you build up a channel, people do like to send you games to review. So many of the games, I always tell people, I didn't actually have to purchase all of them. Many of them came in because I did a review, which means I don't like every game that's in the collection per se, because a review doesn't mean a positive thing, right? You
Yeah.
could dislike it.
Endorsement. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, and I don't believe in endorse. Just because someone sends you a game doesn't mean you need to like it. Is always been
Yeah.
my viewpoint.
Now, I think we're making a clear distinction, right? The energy is different between a board game physically and a video game.
Yes.
Now, and they both have cultures. Can you explain the difference between those two? Because obviously the root of it is gamification, play, but they're different experiences.
They are. No, there are definitely similarities. There's no question. One of my favorite games I'm playing right now, literally I've seen comparisons of, well, this could be a video game, and it's true. And things that are video games could be a board game, and many have become board games. IPs go both directions. That said, I think the thing about a board game for me, and this is the big difference, is very often we are sitting together and playing, whether we're on the same team or we're against each other. We are sitting together in the same
Mhm.
room.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that's always the case, because I play games online with people, but they're very often then I'm in a Discord talking to them. In that way, it doesn't differentiate as much from the video game, where maybe I'm playing on Xbox and my friends are talking to me over voice. But I think board games as a whole, the heart of it, and when it's best, is when we're sitting together at a table playing them. We're talking to each other. We're communicating. We're having a good time. And it's a big reason why, and this is why I wanted to do anything with them, is it's easy to get really into the game. But at the heart of all of this, I want to remind people constantly, and when we do events and everything else, the board game to me is about the fun factor, right? Like, it's not as much to me about the competition. It's getting together and physically being with one another, which felt really strong to me and hit with me really hard after COVID, I have to
Yeah, that's what I
admit.
was about to say. Yeah.
Because during COVID, I played a lot of games with a lot of people online. There's a website, Board
Mhm.
Game Arena. I still play games on it every single day. It's wonderful, but there's nothing like sitting at a table
Mhm.
with someone. A human connection is, I think, the piece that's there, as opposed to yelling at each other across the screen as it's like, go left, and I'm thinking about my son playing Fortnite or something, but
Mhm.
it's there's something different to it. I
Mhm.
have a deep respect for video games and the stories they tell. Board games also tell stories. And that's, I
Mhm.
think, the common thread is they can tell these incredible stories. Because I will always say, and it's, again, not a board game, but like the video game Red Dead Redemption tells an incredible story that's immensely impactful to me to this day. But a board game can create a brand new story for me. And the story that I also talk about with board games is the stories that come out of the play, the experience, the moments, those memories of, do you remember when this happened? And some of those aren't going to be recorded, right? They're just going to be
Mhm.
memories you have, and those stick with you forever.
I think about that, same thing is more so the social emotional
Hmm.
development that you get from games. I host a monthly poker night with some buddies, right? Not saying it's a board game, but the cards and it's a game, and we talk about life, and it's just a routine thing. But thinking about that social emotional connection through games. Talk about that from your experience, that, and I found it very interesting that you said you started this YouTube channel during 5 years ago. If I'm correct, that's COVID.
Yes.
So, like, talk about that social emotional piece to gaming and why that's so important to you and why
So
it came out of COVID.
So the channel started, and we're not a big channel by any means. I mean, we're just sub under 1,000. I've never focused on the growth. I've focused on the community, and the community is really engaging. And it's funny because a lot of times you talk to people in their careers, it's about data, right? Like how do we kind of sell ourselves in that sense? And I mean that obviously in a positive way of letting people know about what we're doing. And I've seen it where when you grow things with community, the impact is bigger. So we've grown it around community, which has turned into a great Discord space where I was literally on with someone the other day playing a game, and we were playing over screens, and they're in Australia and I'm here in the States. And that's amazing. So that's kind of where it came from. I was lonely, to be honest. And I'm an
Yes.
extrovert. And
Yes.
I always
Yep.
explain to people, because very often, you think about an introvert who doesn't necessarily want to engage with people. That extreme on the other end is when an extrovert doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
human engagement, they're missing something, right? And something, I'm just like, what's going on? So that's where it stemmed from, and that's how it began. But it is that emotional aspect, and there's communication skills, by the way, that come from
Mm-hmm.
this. My son was one of those kids who went through half of his elementary school experience in COVID. And one of the big reasons we played board games together is I wanted him to take in communication skills, to have that emotional learning that is occurring. Because yes, you can actually get smarter playing board games. There's not a question about that. But that ability to communicate and talk to someone and understand that, hey, even the simple ability to say, hey, is that the end of your turn?
Yeah.
Simple statement, right?
Yeah.
But that said, not not all the kids are able to do that because they went through the stage where there's just interrupting on top of each other in a Zoom
Yeah.
room.
Yep.
So that was the other part of it, to be honest, in the formation. Was I wanted to play more games because I thought it was beneficial to my family. I thought it was beneficial to my son, and I thought it'd be beneficial to my daughter in the future. And I'll be honest, and if you don't mind, I'll be a little personal on this. My daughter has a lot of different challenges, from apraxia to epilepsy and these other things. But let me tell you, the slowness that comes from apraxia and maybe picking up some language cues, we were able to work on a lot of those through gaming. So even when I had speech people talking to me, I was telling them, hey, if I do this, will it help? And would it be good to mimic? And like, no, that's amazing. Because we had games that we were doing where it was helping with thinking about the words, trying to get those words out. And so we use games in that way. We use them for comprehension. So the origin of it truly does come from an emotional perspective for me and a learning perspective. And that's why I think games are so important, because where video games, I think, can offer this incredible creativity these days. I think, and especially, I think everyone should learn, especially if you're 20 or younger and you have a chance to study it, learn to code and learn to design. Because I think that's a whole nother layer of creativity that I don't have. Think about the concept of designing a story through a board game. Think about what goes into it. Most recent game I played, the designer built the game over 9 years. I want you to think about that. There are people in this world who live only 50, 60 years. If you lived only 60 years and it took you 9 years to design a game, that's 1/6 of your life, essentially, right? So there's a lot of time that goes into this stuff, and a lot of care and thought, and there's a lot of STEM-based games out there. So the origin truly was emotional-based learning, but also educational as a whole.
Well, I think I'm glad you brought that up, and thank you for sharing your family story because, my wife is a social worker, and when she was back in the day doing play therapy, she actually did games, shoots and ladders and things in the play therapy session, which I think talked about what you said is like taking turns, impulse control, learning how to share. It's crazy like that. Play and leisure doesn't always present itself as work,
Yep.
in a traditional sense of work. But through play and leisure, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about emotional regulation. You learn about vocabulary. You learn a lot about a topic. Maybe it's a history game, so there is a lot of learning to go in there. And I'm glad you
Uh,
brought that up because, like,
Well,
think about that. That's crazy.
I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I was just thinking about this the other day because someone had put out a podcast with this particular designer. Uh, the designer in question designed a game called Votes for Women, and it literally takes you through, and it's a 2-player game. You play as either the ones fighting for the right to vote or those who were against, and it comes with, and I love this aspect of it. The way designer did it was she put all these old articles and all these old historical documents in. So when you open it, the first thing you see is this historical document. And then you've got sample button like that are in there that the suffragettes were wearing. So you talk about what that means, right? And the stories that tells. Well, yeah, that's telling a true story. And all the events in the game really happened. And if a certain event happens, it can queue up other things. But the design was brilliant. It's simple enough, but I can teach. I can do event around it. But at the same time, it's of historical relevance. And there's many games like that are in the space. So teaching history is one of them. And it could be and it could be also academic. I talk about the fact that, hey, there's a game out there called Flip 7 by a publisher called the OP. And honestly, yeah, it's a game where you put cards down, you push your luck. There's 12 12s, 11 11s, 10 10s. You don't want to get doubles of anything. You want to get 7 cards out. If you flip 7 cards out, you get 15 plus points at the end of the turn. That's the game. First to 200 wins. But think about what happens in between each round for that game. Your kids are adding up the score. So you're doing addition. It's a minor thing, but we don't think about that. The intrinsic skills that the kids are taking in that we're reinforcing all in the matter of a game. So having them do those things, and those are things that for $20 or less, teachers can have in the classroom. And that's the type of stuff that I want to bring forward to people is games can educate kids in these fun ways that people aren't thinking about. And they're literally fun. They're not something the kids are going to be, annoyed that they have to do.
So one of my thoughts too that came to my mind is that transition, right? Like you said, it went from YouTube channel, no, first personal interest to YouTube channel to now you have traveling games. When did you think that this was something to bring out into the community and be a benefit to others outside the digital space of YouTube?
So it's funny. We formed traveling boards officially as a general partnership in 2025. So officially had insurance, all that stuff, 2025. But the origins of it goes back. So even when the YouTube channel Tabletop Express got formed, it was called Tabletop Express because my original idea was I could put together packages that people could order for a game night and it's not an idea that I ever completely fleshed out, obviously, but like you could order a package of games and we can send them to you, deliver them to you, and custom around a theme or custom around some sort of idea. Again, never completely fleshed it out, but that was where the idea of the Tabletop Express was because express delivery, so that's where that originated from. The turning into this happened more because what happened was I met Anthony, my partner in the business, through the YouTube channel. He was doing his own channel at the time. He had a channel called Board Game Dads. Ultimately, we brought him into our channel with the Tabletop Express, and we both had a similar vision of what we wanted to do. Slight differences, but in teaming together, it made a lot more sense. We could do a lot more. We could accomplish a lot more because sometimes for certain things you need 2 people, and we do trivia, we do bingo, we do those other things too, don't get me wrong. And quite frankly, sometimes those are easier to sell because we're still selling the idea of the value of board games to a lot of people. There's a lot of education that has to happen. But Anthony had these ideas, I had these ideas, we kind of just combined them together and we said let's do it. And we knew it wasn't going to be, again, the big money maker. We are a company that started from complete scratch. Our money is the only money that's ever been put into it. We don't have anyone who's invested in us or something, right? So it's a process. It's something I'm excited about. And even if I was to take on a full-time work and not do consulting, I don't think traveling boards would go anywhere. So it's one of those things that won't disappear one way or the other, but I think it could be so much bigger. And so I'm very confident what it can be, and I'm excited by the value of it. So that's kind of the origin and why there was excitement around it. And it did come together, to your point, very organically.
Yeah, have you had a client yet, or if not a client yet, have you prototyped it with a community group? And what was some of the feedbacks that you got from, coming into a situation and helping them play a game?
So it's interesting. We've done quite a few things overall. So I actually got to go out to a retreat for a group of economists, and I brought games that were economy themed. So that was very different. That was a really cool thing that I got to do. We have worked with community cafes to run family game nights and things along those lines. We're in the process of working with a school or two where we are running a board game club or a chess club. It does take significant time. So again, we're limited. We can only do so many of those as two people in the early going, but we've got to get the legwork in. We are currently, as we're recording this, planning we have a few events coming up where we actually have a games on the green, where it's going to be board games and golf machines at a venue. So we're getting out there. We've got our interest in, and we have even a restaurant or two that wants to have a family game night. So we're out in the space. I think it's, yes, we're still probably getting our sea legs, it's fair to say, but we've been out there in terms of being there. We've had an event at least once a month, probably since the start of a year. And we've had successes. We've had failures. We had a success. I always laugh about this. I mean, look, you learn by both, right? And we had an event that went incredibly well, but the way that pricing worked out for the business we worked with maybe wasn't as beneficial for them. So they weren't as happy, but we learned from that. We learned that, okay, well, maybe when we work with a business, they shouldn't include drinks in the cost, because they're not going to make as much money. And again, even if that's not my decision, right? Ultimately, I could be told, no, we don't want to do that, right? It gives me more information on what to lead on and say, okay, yeah, cool. Do this. This is all we want. We just, we'll use the space, and then you charge for the food and the drink. And so we learned along the way. But the event in particular, we had 35, 40 people come out in a space that could barely fit them. And so if more people came out, we were actually screwed. And the thing I laughed about that night is the only reason we didn't have 50 plus people at that event was because it was bingo night at the local school that my daughter goes to. So had that not been happening, I had actively 5 to 7 other parents and their kids say, oh, we would have been there, but we already signed up for this. So again, from it I think, look, you talk about
You live and learn.
positivity. You have to take positive from the lessons learned and say, okay, cool, but we learned something from this. If this didn't work, then how do we fix it? What do we learn from that? And how do we make that work the next time around?
So one of my thoughts is too, like, you're getting into community right now. Is this really embedded in your local community? And how have you gotten yourself out there recently? Families is awesome. Like, how have you really leveraged your own personal community to get this started?
So it's definitely been leveraged through more local than not, more around the Northeast, I'd say New Jersey area overall, more northern New Jersey than anything. And that's fine. And that's strategic, to be honest. It's we because if I have to drive down to, close to Philly, 2 hours for some sort of event, well, now I got to charge a travel fee. Now, mind you, the one event we did was in Massachusetts, but that was even a personal connection that allowed me to make that possible. I did some outreach and said, hey, would they be interested in their game? Vice versa comes back and event happens, and I'm still in talks with them for hopefully more stuff, so I think what's interesting is it is personal, because we have to be personal. I live in a small community where everyone knows everyone. So if you're doing business, you're going to do that. I'm in the Chamber of Commerce, which means, volunteer things as well that we're going to do. And I also brought back the board game club that I started before I had a business to the local library. So we run the board game club at the library. Even we don't get money for that. I'm a trustee at the library, so I can't even charge them if I wanted. That's not possible, but that's going and giving back. So a lot of what we're doing is giving back early on, so they know who we are and come back to us in the future. And it allows us to continue to educate. It is strongly community focused in our more local communities, but the idea is that people will talk about us and spread the word. It is, again, as I noted, something that we are funding from our own lives while we're still, trying to pay our own bills and do all the things that we have to do to support our families. So it's going to be something that takes time, but I will tell you, you don't discount the blessing that is if you've got a spouse or someone who loves you in your life who gives you the time and patience to pursue this type of stuff. Because I pursued this as I started my 40s. You know what I mean? I pursued this later in life. And the level of happiness that I have now compared to any time in corporate in the past 5 years is night and day. I'm just significantly a happier person. And there's something about that when you're doing something that matters and ultimately you feel like gives back. So for me, it's all worth it. And that's why community is at the heart of it, because when you do serve your community, I do think you feel better about what you're doing, but you're doing something that I think matters significantly more than if you're doing it for a corporation.
Now, one question I thought about is, when you're doing these games, uh, have some of the games that you've done with others new games to you for the first time as well, or they're mostly games that you've known or you had to educate yourself on games while you present it to some other external people?
So it's interesting you asked that. We will learn any game for someone. So if someone says, like, we do pop-up board game cafes every few months, and literally as we on our registration, it says, are there any games you're interested in? And we will try to get a hold of a game. We have about 500 games, I'd say, in our core collection. And by our core collection, I can pull it off the shelf right now. But if you go to our external network of friends and family, we have access to closer to 1,500 to 2,500 board games. So if people say I'm really interested in a game, usually I can find it and I will learn it and I will teach it. I had we're doing a pop-up. It wasn't our most recent pop-up, but I think it was the one before. Someone said, I really want to play this game. Does anyone have it? Is it here? And I said, no, but it's at my house. So I said, give me 10 minutes. I'm going to drive back to my house. And I brought it. I set it up. I taught them the game. They played that game the rest of the night. So it's that level of service that we want to give to people. Now, I obviously can't do that if I'm significantly farther away. But the point is, yeah, we're going to learn a game or we're going to teach a game, whether it's new or not. The bottom line is we are constantly learning new games. So we have to be. I mean, I literally just got 3 new board games in within the past week, and I'm in reading the rule books. So if you actually, I'll joke, if people in my town, we've been at the pool a lot this summer as we're recording this. So, and I will just say, usually people see me not reading a book from the library, even though I'm a library trustee. They usually see me reading a board game rule book because that's what I'm doing. I read them constantly, and it's important. It's part of a job as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, and I'm always happy to learn a new game because you never know what you're going to like. And so it's always fun any chance I have to try a new game. And again, you're not going to like every game. But part of the thing that we like to do too is ask the question, especially if we're working an event for someone, say, hey, what type of games have you played before? What are you interested in? The thing I will note is when we spoke to doing work with a kind of like a senior citizens group, we asked, what games did you enjoy playing? Because there's a lot of modern games that connect and literally run off themes of old games like Rummy or something else. And we can connect the dots and introduce modern games, or we can just go run classic games. So it's about delivering on what a client would actually want versus necessarily trying to force something, because that's the biggest mistake any board gamer can make, is try to force a game that someone does not want to play to the table. You make a bad experience. No one's going to want to play with you.
Have you had, now that I think about it, no gaming experience is always perfect. Have you ever had to like kind of not say do security, but like, some sore losers or really be like, kind of be like not a police, but you know what I meant? Like, come on, let's keep this, civil and people are getting upset while they're playing games and you're trying to have people have good experience. Have you had to jump in like that before?
I wouldn't describe it as they're having a bad experience, or sometimes it's just they're confused. We had a young person at one of our events recently, and it's middle of the summer, so it was not as large of a turnout as as I maybe would have liked. But again, turning a negative into a positive, it meant we all got to play some games together. So we had a decent sized group, but for some larger games. And I could see the frustration in just like picking up the rules. But then again, being positive, by the end of the game, that player was like, I didn't want to play this in the beginning, and I ended up loving it. I'm really upset that this game is out of print, because the game we played was a game that was out of print that someone brought. So it wasn't even from our library. It was brought by someone else, and they asked, can we play this? I would really love to teach it. We said, yeah, great. So, but again, it's keeping positivity. And I've had that before where people are confused by rules, but that's also why we are there to be, and that's a big focus of our service, is that we want to be able to teach you. We don't want you to have to open the rule book, except for if you want to make a quick reference. Some books have like a reference sheet on the back, or they come with a reference sheet. And then it's also, by the way, for what it's worth, it's understanding who certain games may be for, because there are some games that I'm not going to put on the table in front of a certain audience because I can read it immediately. It just takes the one person or the two people who the game isn't for, and the entire experience is bad for everyone. So you need to be really mindful of that, which is why I do say you do have a reason that there are experts in that, because they understand what games are going to be strong for the right groups and provide variety in those games. So if you put together a game night, which we can put together for any kind of organization, obviously, we also have to bring variety, because some people might want a simple card game. Someone might want Scrabble. Another person's going to want to try a modern board game, and that's where we really thrive. But it doesn't mean we don't have the classics ready to go, because there's some people who will just be like, whoa, I'm not touching that. So, you got to be ready for everything.
So what is in the vision for the future, right? Like you're up and started, this is your first year. What is like lofty goals or scary goals for year two of your wonderful idea about bringing games to the world and bringing people together?
So one of our big focuses right now is actually trying to get out there in a few different ways that are a little different. So we have been outreaching to a lot of schools, trying to get into those not those parent teacher the teacher conferences where they go and learn about new things they can do, trying to educate the teachers on the opportunities to bring games into the classroom in a cost-effective manner that they can enhance the students' education. I think really working with schools, but be it public or private, it doesn't matter, in terms of getting more after school type activities for that, because I do think about the kids who aren't athletes, who maybe want something to do, and games are a great way to do it. Games also have a lot of different ways that they can contribute to other things, such as your ability to do theatrics, your ability to do math. So we can associate games with different skill sets and help a lot of educational places in that way, as well as community centers. I've got a big goal. I think I was pretty much locked in for community center programming. And then in my community, they needed to give part of the community center to our local police. So naturally, we didn't get to, the police needed a space. But I want to be in more community centers. I want to be out there. I want to do summer programming. So those are going to be really big things for us, because we're able to do that. We're able to get out there. We're able to run highly thematic stuff. And I want to tell you on a personal note, what I'd like to do is also get out there with some of those games, like I mentioned, Votes for Women, and other games like that, that provide this real educational value about actual things that happened, but it's in a really interesting way that we can learn about them. The hardest, and I will say, it's interesting with that game, and one reason I bring that up is because you can actually play it collaboratively, and just everyone is the one fighting the suffragette movement, or you can play it competitively. So it plays both ways, but because you run into some people say, well, I don't want to be the bad guy. But especially in real history moments, but there are games around all these social issues that I think are incredibly important, and also around just history and moments in history. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that there's a 2-player board game about Watergate, and it's called Watergate. It's what the name of the game is. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's an incredible asymmetric game where you have two different factions with different, the way they play is they've got different sets of cards, but it's a game that plays in under 45 minutes. And all the characters you see in it real people from history. So you can make lessons out of this. So I think a big focus for us is going to be education, and it continues to be education. But my business partner and I are both educators by trade. We've both got years of experience. I have 10, 11 years in higher education. He's been in the classroom. So we really want to hit education, and we want to add the value there more than anything. And I think that's where we can truly succeed. And honestly, even if we succeed in there and in the next year and a half, and that's the progress we make, I'll be thrilled. Absolutely thrilled.
I love that. I love that. Well, I think that's a good note, thinking about the future, to go to our next segment of my show. It's called Shot for Shot. You get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first? I'll go first.
You hit me first. I want to
All
get
right.
the groove here.
So I'm gonna bring back Monopoly, even though it's not your favorite game. Why is it not your favorite game? And if you were forced to play it, what item would you be on the board?
Well, that one's easy. I'm going to answer that one first. I'd be the dog.
Okay, yeah.
I'm always the dog. And I think the reason is I've played other games that do what Monopoly does, but with just some interesting twists that I think make them better. So as an example, Thunderworks Games has a game called Cape May. Now I'm in New Jersey. I'm not from New Jersey, but I'm in New Jersey. And I can tell you Cape May has some Monopoly attributes in a strong way, except you use cards to move, not dice. And there's one-way streets. It's just an uptick enough. And instead of buying properties, you're building on properties. So it gets to the fun part, by the way, of Monopoly, which is the building of the properties, right? So, so to me, that's part of it. But as I noted, I think it is just, it's an incredibly important game. And I don't think most people even know the real meaning behind the original game. But yeah, that's probably the why. But I'm always the dog. And I hope they didn't also, if you do play Monopoly, if I make the note, they put out expansions for Monopoly now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
they are
crazy.
all make the game better. And so I will be playing Monopoly at some point because I need to try these expansions. Like they take the Park Place thing and make it an actual rule, if I'm not mistaken, where people would put the money on go or something. Like they took a lot of those house rules that people did and make them like official rules. So yeah, hopefully that answers that question well enough.
I love it. I love it. And what's your question for me?
So I would say what is the last board game that you played?
With my sons, I think it was last week or maybe the week before. And yeah, wow, is it coming to me? Well, technically, is Yahtzee a board game?
I mean, it is. And there's a lot of board games that are based on the concept of Yahtzee and how Yahtzee plays.
Okay,
so Yahtzee would
then it's
count.
not last week. It's this week. I played Yahtzee.
Yeah,
I played
Yahtzee.
Yahtzee a lot. I love Yahtzee. I love the cards. And then sometimes I printed out the extended, like you can get a worksheet to have more combinations. I printed that out before for Yahtzee, but Yahtzee is one of my favorite. I don't know. It's like, I would say for me, top 5, because it's just something one point that I love about your thing is that you connected Monopoly to a memory with your grandfather. I remember how I learned how to play Yahtzee is that in 2006, I did an alternative spring break in New Orleans right after Hurricane Katrina. And an older couple that was also at this, like helping, do volunteerism at, in New Orleans, taught me how to play. And I played all weekend because we had no TVs and stuff. And then I love playing Yahtzee. It's like one of my favorite games. So I connected that to them.
Yeah, it's a great simple concept that has expanded. It's really interesting too, because like I said, this is a great example where someone says, "Hey, I've played this. I can now from that, I could in theory send you, hey, here's some other ones to try because they have a Yahtzee-like feel." And so that's one of the beauty of games. If you like a certain thing, you can find other things that you might like from it. It's not that different from those who are wine connoisseurs or you're into your micro brews. It's not that different in that way.
Oh, there's definitely a niche and a lane, and there's a culture. Everything has a culture. And I think even board games is major. Like I go to like the Comic Cons,
Mhm.
And now they have like a whole section for just board games in the Comic Con
Yes.
at the Awesome Con, like a whole like let's play board games. So I mean, it's a whole subculture. I don't know why. Maybe they're assuming that all nerds are under one umbrella. You know, link us together. Nerds like comics, they like this, and they like board games. Shout out to self. I am a self-identified nerd, but like it's in the Comic Con and they're playing.
Yep.
While some of them are still dressed up in their Chewbacca uniforms. You know what I'm saying? Like they're playing board games. It's crazy. It's, crazy work.
Yeah, and I go to and with the cons, I mean, I go to PAX Unplugged every year in Philadelphia. It's a board game convention. It's all board games. It's
Do they
amazing.
do they randomly overlap and now have people dressed up in costumes coming to the board
There
games?
are other ones that have a little bit more of that. There are some people dressed. There's a lot less dressed up at a PAX Unplugged,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
there's PAX East or PAX West may have more of that. But PAX Unplugged, no, Dragon Con might. I've never been to Dragon Con, but I think more
All the
people at
cons.
Dragon Con are dressed up.
Go to any con. I bet you now they're gonna have board games at
Oh,
the con.
people are. I mean, I walk around PAX Unplugged with a Captain America shield, so it's kind
There
of
it
my
is.
thing at this point that I do that.
You already know it's overlap. Nerds unite. But it's the part of the show called shout outs and plugs. Shout outs means show love to anyone you want to show love to, and then plugs. These are the things that you want to elevate to the listeners. The things you're working on. So I'll make sure to put those in the show notes. So
Excellent.
the platform, shout outs and plugs.
Yeah, the shout outs I want to give to is I think there are tremendous people in the space who do amazing things. There's a lot of, if you are, and it's not one specific person, but if you are in a community anywhere and you see what we call the friendly local game store, which is the board game store that has board games. And I want to be really clear, and this is not a knock on in any way the Lorcanas and the Magic the Gatherings and these solely trading card style games where or Pokemon, like where you're hoping to get something. But if they sell board games, like solid board games, like go spend your money there as opposed to buying them online. You giving money back to people who keep the hobby alive, and it's incredibly important. These publishers who are putting out games with a lot of love and care these days. So it's not one specific place, but I just would encourage people to check them out. And we call them FLGs, our friendly local game stores, but give some love to them, buy a game from them, because it tells them we need to get more games in stock because people buy from us. And that's a good thing. That's good for the industry. We want to be able to find those and just try something new with those, see if even if you think the cover looks cute, ask to learn about it first.
Yeah.
Please ask, because just because the cover looks cute does not mean the game is cute or easy. But yeah, that's what I would say. And then in terms of really where people can find out what we're up to, travelingboards.com, we do have a redesign in the works. I don't love the way our site works, but you'll find out things that we're doing. That's on the list. Travelingboards.com. And really when it comes down to it, I would just let people know, like, if you know someone who maybe would like to run a different type of an event, whether it be custom trivia, because we completely customize, and all our trivia, by the way, is based on party board games. Our trivia is not like bar trivia. It's based on actual board games. So any trivia we do is stemming from an existing party game that is a purchasable thing generally. So that's cool. Like if you like the way we did a certain style of trivia, there's a semi-adjacent game you could pick up. The other thing I would say is if you know someone looking to spice up their corporate retreat or in any sort of interesting way, I mean, we do a lot of different things, and board games is part of that, obviously, and that's at the heart of it, really. And we can bring a really unique experience to any company. And we, again, all customized. So we try to get out there with that. And if you do know a school that, hey, might want to talk to a company that could help give them some recommendations to, spice up what they're doing. Schools have a limited budget, and we recognize that. So we want to just kind of get an entry in to say hello, tell them about what we're doing. Cause we have some, low cost things that they could purchase that can change their education system and hopefully I think add some value through games and play, which is high in demand at the K-5 level right now. It's an incredibly important piece of that component. And we have education backgrounds where we have some understanding of that curriculum. and stay in the loop on it. So we can definitely speak to that. But I would encourage people more than anything to look out for us, travelingboards.com. And yeah, also, if you're interested and you want to watch some just fun videos, Tabletop Express on YouTube, definitely go follow us there. We do a mix of live videos, which includes a call-in show at the end of every month where we just invite people to call and talk about the games they played that month. We are in a transitional phase right now, so less live video. We used to do a live video every week. We're in a slight transitional phase right now where we're doing a few different things, but yeah, we have a lot of fun. So go check us out, Tabletop Express.
Tabletop Express. I love it. I love it. Well, Positive Filter listeners, it's been a great episode. Please follow along with Chris and all the things he's doing to elevate gaming and really build communities. It's great work. As you know, every episode is dedicated to the memory of my late father-in-law, Jeff Kirsch. So please consider donating to the Jeff Kirsch Anti-Hunger Fund for all his work fighting food security during his career. Also, if you're a member of the Mason Nation, please consider submitting a Patch for Patriots to show kindness and love to someone else here. Kindness goes a long way. But thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please share it with a family member or friend, and have a great day. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.